How many of you here today own a cell phone? Raise your hands. How many of you do not own a cell phone? Raise your hands. More than I thought. Do you know the story about the monkey and the jar of peanuts? The monkey puts his hands in the jar and grabs a fistful of peanuts. He doesn't realize that if he only opens his fist and lets go of the peanuts, his hand will come out easily. But then he wouldn't get the peanuts, so he holds on. He never gets to eat the peanuts, and his fist is stuck in the jar forever. The peanuts are cell phones. Most people on this planet have a jar of peanuts with their fist in the jar, and they won't let go. If they think about it at all, they want the cell towers to go away. They don't want 5G. They don't want 20,000 satellites in the sky. They don't want to be irradiated, but they won't take their hand out of that jar. It doesn't occur to them that once, not too long ago, there were no peanuts in the jar and there were no cell towers, and they did not forget their words, and their friends did not have cancer and heart disease and diabetes, and their children did not have ADHD or autism, and flowers were full of butterflies and bees. If you hold a cell phone in your hand against your head, your brain is getting 100,000 times more radiation from the cell phone than it probably gets from the nearest cell tower. If you put the cell tower on a table 3 feet away, you're only getting 10 times more radiation from the cell tower than you're getting from the cell phone than you're getting from the cell tower. In order for you to own a cell phone, that tower has to be there. In order for you to make a cell phone call, that tower has to open up a dedicated channel just for you, and it has to irradiate the entire countryside just so you can make that call and irradiate not only your own brain, but everyone around you. Those of you who own cell phones, do you ever wonder when you're on your phone who you are irradiating, who you are torturing? In order for you to answer a call on your phone, that cell tower has to open up a dedicated channel just for you and irradiate the countryside and all the people and birds and animals and trees and insects just so you can answer that call. And if you want to be able to use your cell phone in emergencies and remote locations, there have to be cell towers absolutely everywhere. And if you want to be able to connect to the internet with your cell phone, and everybody in the world wants to connect to the internet with their cell phone, the existing towers don't have enough capacity, so they have to build more of them. The more devices there are on the internet, the more towers. As we progress from 1G to 2G to 3G to 4G to 5G, we also progress from having a cell tower on a mountaintop 90 miles away to having a cell tower on a lamppost outside your bedroom window. 1G is what we had in the 1980s and until 1996. The phones were large, not many people had them, and the cell towers were few and very far between, mostly around metropolitan areas. The few people who used cell phones lost many brain cells, and some got brain cancer. But the general population was not much affected. Analog signals are smooth sine waves, continuous waves. Each frequency can only serve a single cell phone user. 2G is digital. Digital means pulsed. Everything is encoded into zeros and ones. 2G came to the US in late 1996. The telecommunications industry wanted to put a cell phone into the hands of every man, woman, and child on Earth. And in order to do that, they needed a much denser network of cell towers. And they needed them everywhere, not just in metropolitan areas, but in small towns, forests, wildlife refuges, wilderness areas, and national parks. They sold these phones as being necessary for emergencies, and they could not sell them unless they could assure people they would work wherever they lived and wherever they traveled. 2G was digital for two reasons. First, each frequency could be used simultaneously by many users. They could divide a single frequency into time slots, one time slot per user instead of one frequency per user. Or they could assign a different digital code to different users of the same frequency. So they didn't need quite so many towers if they were digital. Second, they wanted all cell phones to be able to save and store information that could be downloaded onto a computer. 2G caused enormous health problems. It injured millions. It caused the influenza epidemic of 1996 through 1997. It killed at least 10,000 in the United States in a matter of months, according to statistics from the Centers for Disease Control. I am a refugee from 2G technology. Some people say that pulse signals are more harmful than continuous waves. That's not always true. They both cause cancer and diabetes, as far as we know, equally. Continuous waves cause worse damage to the blood-brain barrier than pulsed signals. Pulse signals are more damaging to the heart and the nervous system. It depends on which effects you are looking at. 3G came to the US in 2004. 3G were the first smartphones. Now you could send text messages and you could get onto the internet with your phone. Cell phones were now little computers. 3G needed a lot more towers. 4G added still more capabilities. It was much faster. You could stream video on your phone. 4G needed to be much faster because 3G was slowing way down due to the constantly increasing traffic and the increasing number of users. 4G required still more towers. Each upgrade in service injured additional people, killed additional people, and created additional refugees who can no longer live in society. 5G will still be digital, but it will be radically different in a number of ways. Necessarily so, because there is no way to connect 1 trillion separate objects to the internet, which is what the Internet of Things is all about. There is no way to do that with traditional cell towers and with the frequencies currently in use. There simply is not enough bandwidth. If you understand that bandwidth means radiation, then you can begin to grasp the enormity of 5G. At millimeter wave frequencies, a wireless company will be able to own 5 gigahertz of continuous electromagnetic spectrum. But even that much spectrum, even that much radiation cannot connect 1 trillion separate devices unless cell towers and cell phones are completely redesigned. 5G is being created because of consumer demand. Too many devices are being connected up to the internet, devices in homes, businesses, and automobiles. Everyone is using their devices at all hours of the day. 4G is slowing way down, and the wireless industry is projecting into the future and building a robust network that will accommodate 100 billion devices, or even 1 trillion devices, all operating simultaneously. The new network will use something called phased arrays. That means your cell phone will have within it an array of dozens of antennas, all working together to shoot a powerful laser-like beam at the nearest cell tower. And instead of having 3, 6, or 9 antennas broadcasting in all directions, the cell tower will have an array of hundreds or thousands of millimeter-sized antennas, all working together to shoot multiple individual laser-like beams at you and everyone else who is holding a cell phone, and the beams, which will have an effective radiated power of up to 100,000 watts or more, will track you wherever you go. Needless to say, birds that get in the way of these beams will be in trouble. So will insects, which are millimeter-sized creatures that will resonate and selectively absorb the millimeter frequencies that will be used for 5G. At least 20 million people in the world, and I estimate that conservatively, have already been injured by cell phones and their infrastructure so severely that they cannot work, they are driven out of their homes and their cities, and they cannot live in society. They are environmental refugees, and they are in every country. Many are housebound and never venture outside. It's not just because of cell towers and Wi-Fi, it's because every person in the world has a cell phone. They never go out in society to avoid being tortured whenever someone pulls out a phone and makes a call, or sends a text, or takes a picture, or even sits near them with a phone in their pocket, because cell phones radiate even when they are off, as long as the battery is in them. Many of these people are homeless, living in cars and tents in remote places, committing suicide, and no one comes to their aid. Many are your friends and neighbors, your doctors, your children's teachers. Many more are your former friends and neighbors, your former doctors, your children's former teachers, perhaps your ex-spouse, your mother or father or son or daughter or cousin. These are the people who are called, wrongly, electrically sensitive, just as the people who have been poisoned by the millions of petrochemicals that have rained down on our world since World War II are called, wrongly, chemically sensitive. Electrical sensitivity is not a disease. It is not a medical term. It is a purely political term. It is a term that allows everyone who uses a cell phone or a wireless